So today we're going to learn about Amazon RDS. RDS is a service which is relational database service on AWS that lets you create databases. You have two options to create databases on the cloud. You can either choose RDS or you can choose EC2 instance. So RDS is a managed service which lets you create SQL server, and here on EC2 you need to run the commands to install any SQL server like Postgres or mysql or Oracle, anything. But when you use RDS, you click on create database option, you get the option to select what SQL engine do you want. So for example, you can select if you want to have MySQL or MariaDB or Postgres or Oracle, Microsoft, anything. Or you can also use the Amazon Aurora, which is Amazon's own database which has two flavors, which is MySQL or Postgres. So you can see there are two compatible edition, MySQL and Aurora. So this is very easy to go with. Everything is managed by AWS, but when you do it on EC2 instance, you need to run the commands, because EC2 is like this, where you have a terminal and you need to run some commands to install any database. Right, so it's very easy to. So let's go and create a database. So we saw how to create MySQL and Postgres earlier. So I'm going to quickly. So I hope you have MySQL Workbench installed in your machine, right?
No.
Or PgAdmin, anything?
Yeah, I can install that, but it doesn't take long, is it?
Yes, so we'll do that. So let's install this. So I'm going to choose the free tier. You can choose any of them: production, dev test, or free tier. So I'm going to go with free tier because I don't want to pay much money. So free tier will only give you DB T3 micro, whereas if you use dev test or production, it will give you big instances as well, instance size greater than T3 micro. So
how expensive if I
yes, it is expensive and it has a lot of features like Multi AZ and everything else, but in free tier you don't get much features. So if you're doing any production workloads, you should always go with either dev test or production. So for now, as we're just practicing, we will go with the free tier.
Okay.
Then this is a database Sorry?
Okay. The options are the same, is it?
Yeah, options are same, but if I choose this, let's say I choose production rather than free tier, I get the options like, so default settings for, so these are the default settings whenever you use the easy create. So I'm going to choose the standard create. So you need to choose the standard create, because if you choose easy create, AWS will recommend you all the settings, but if you choose standard, you can customize whatever you want. So let's say I want for production, I have Multi AZ database instance, but if I choose free tier, this will be gone.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
So with production or dev test, you get more features compared to free tier. So use free tier to develop new application, test existing application, or gain hands-on experience. And dev test, whenever you want to use this instance, is intended for development use outside of production environment. And production use defaults for high availability and fast, consistent performance. So whenever you want to have good performance, go with production. Whenever you want to try out and learn the RDS service, go with free tier. So we're going to choose the free tier option. This is database identifier, and if you see, it specifies the name that is unique for all database instances owned by your AWS account in the current region. You need to give the name of the database. So you can give it anything. Let's say I give it my database, and then this is a username, the master username and the master password that will be used to sign in into your database. So I'm going to give it admin, like let's keep it admin, and the password, you can either choose auto generate or you can give your own custom password. But it should be at least 8 characters, and it should not contain slash or @ sign or double quotation mark. So make sure you follow the password policy. So I'm going to pass in PASSWORD and 123. Same for here as well. So confirm password 123. Okay, now I have the option to select what instance configuration do I want, which means what size do I want. So as we are selecting only free tier, we only get T2 micro and T3 micro, or all the micro. We don't get large or extra large or 2x large. So we are going to select the T3 micro. Here we have the option to select what EBS volumes do you want, what storage type do you want. So you have general purpose SSD, you have provisioned IOPS SSD, and you have magnetic. So general purpose are used whenever you want to have a general use case, So you can see general purpose SSD is suitable for broad range of database workload and provides the baseline of three input and output operations per second and per GB, and it can burst up to 3000 IOPS. So you have a good storage capacity here and good storage and performance in general purpose. But if you want to exceed your storage, exceed your performance, you can go with the provisioned IOPS. So provisioned IOPS SSD storage is suitable for IO intensive, input output intensive database workloads, and it provides flexibility to provision ranging from 1000 to 80,000 IOPS. IOPS stands for input output operations per second. So input output operations means in 1 second how much data can be written or read through the database. So if you see here, it has 3000, but if I choose provision IOPS, I don't get that option, right?
Yeah.
Then you can also define how much storage should be allocated to this database. So if your database is not going to exceed much, it is limited to, let's say, only 20, you can keep it 20, or else you can enable the storage autoscaling option, which will increase the storage every time it is. Let's say you have defined the storage of 20 GB, but now your data, you have entered more data and it is 21 GB now, right? If you have not enabled this autoscaling, the database will stop performing. There might be a chance where your services have been stopped as well. If you have website, it will be down as well. So if you know the fixed size, you can choose that. If not, you can go with the storage scaling, where you don't know the where your database storage is unpredictable. So for now, I'm not going to enable it, but if you enable it, you can define how much should it go. So it can go up to 1000 GB, right? And here the minimum allocated storage can be 20 GB. If you put anything less than 20, it will show you an error. It should be 20 GB minimum, and maximum can go up to 6 TB. So 6144 GB, which is 6 TB, right? Then you have the option to connect to the database with an EC2 compute resource. So choose whether to set up a connection to a compute resource for this database, and setting up a connection will automatically change the connectivity settings so that the compute resource can connect to this database. So if you want an EC2 instance to connect to the database that you're creating here, you can choose the option to connect to an EC2 compute resource. If not, you can choose this, which says don't set a connection to a compute resource for this database. You can manually set up a connection to a compute resource later on. You can also do that later on, but for now I'm just going to choose this and choose which EC2 instance. So you have to have an EC2 instance in your machine launched, so you need to have it. So I can make it this, but this is launched inside a subnet which does not have, so I'm going to skip this for now. Then you have a database subnet group. So choose the database subnet group. The database subnet group defines which subnets and IP ranges the database can use in the VPC that you selected. So if you know, VPC have something known as CIDR range, CIDR, or classless inter-domain routing. So that CIDR range define what IP should be given to the instance or the database launched in that subnet. So you can choose, if you have created any subnet group, you can choose that. We haven't created any, so we're going to choose default. Next we have the parameter is public access. So which means if you want to provide public access to your database can be accessible to anyone on the public internet. If they have the right permissions, you can choose yes. If you don't want, then you can choose no. So here it says RDS is assigned a public IP address to the database. Amazon EC2 instance and other resources outside the VPC can connect to your database, and resources inside the VPC can also connect to the database. So when you choose yes, resources outside the VPC can also talk to your database, and your database will have a public IP address because it is publicly accessible, which is not a good thing if you're doing it in production. So you should always make it non-public access if it is in production, because you want to keep your database safe, and you don't want them to be accessible from the hackers or bad people on the internet, right? So for now, as it is for testing purpose, and we need to connect it through outside the data VPC, we are going to choose yes. So here if you choose no, it says it does not give you a public IP address to the database, and only the Amazon EC2 instance that you have selected here will be used to connect your database.
Okay.
Next, you can choose what security group do you want. So you can choose existing ones if you have any, or you can choose the default one. So I'm going to choose a VPC security group. Okay, so this is another region, so I'm going to choose the default one, and let's see if what security group rules we have here. So it should have the security group rule for the port. For example, we are using MySQL, so it should have 3306 in it, because 3306 is the port number of the MySQL database, right? Then you can define what availability zone do you want to launch this database in. So if you don't define anything, AWS will randomly select any of them. But if you want to define, let's say in 2A or 2B or 2C or 2D, you can choose that. So I'm going to choose 2A. Then this is the port. You can see here 3306. You can enable authentication. So how can you connect to your database? You can have password authentication. You can also have password plus IAM database authentication. So authenticate using the database password and the user credentials through the AWS IAM users and role. So AWS IAM is a service which lets you create users and groups with certain permissions. So if you want your database to be connected with password plus the IAM user, so that the user should have access to database, only then it can connect to it, then you can do that as well. Or something known as Kerberos authentication. Choose a directory in which you want to allow authorized users to authenticate with this database instance using Kerberos authentication. So Kerberos, I don't know how to spell that, but that is also a kind of directory similar to Active Directory or AD. So you can, in that directory, you can put in the names or the user list who can access database. But for now, we're going to choose the password database because we have already set up the password here.
Yeah.
Right. So next is monitoring. So you can enable enhanced monitoring to check how your database is performing. So enabling enhanced monitoring metrics are useful when you want to see how different processes or the threads to use the CPU. So if you want to see how your database is performing and how the CPU is utilized, you can choose enhanced monitoring. Then you have configurations like what should be the name of the database. So if you have not specified the database, Amazon RDS does not create a database. So let's give a database MyDB, and the parameter group is going to be this, option group is going to be this. So if you want to know what parameter groups are, choose a database parameter group that defines the configuration settings you have applied to this database instance. So you need to create one if you want to have, or else we will be using the default one. Then you have options. So choose the database option group that enables any optional functionality you want the database to support, such as Oracle or SQL or data encryption or MySQL 5.6 Memcached support. So depending on the database, you can select your option group. So we're going to go with the default one. Then you can also enable backups. So backups means creating a copy of your database so that you can come back, you can create a new database if this is facing any problems or anything. So if you want, you can enable a database which is automated enabled database. So if you enable that, every 7 days it will create a new backup and store it in the snapshot, which is here, right? So this is good for production database, but if you are doing it for practice, make sure you disable it, because it will automatically create the snapshot which will charge you money.
Okay, yeah.
Then you have encryption. Encryption means encrypting the data that is stored inside the database or the data that is passed between the database and the application. So you can choose to encrypt the service using the KMS. So every encryption in the AWS is mostly done with KMS or key management service. So if you enable that, you can also define what key you want to use. So choose to encrypt the given instance master key ID and the alias appear in the list after they have been created using the AWS key management service console. So I'm going to select this, but I'm not enabling encryption because this is also going to charge you money. But you have an option to select encryption, to create backups, to enable monitoring, and a lot more function, which is why RDS is so popular. Because if you do that in EC2 instance, it will require a lot of configurations and manual work. But you can do that in RDS with just a single click.
So which one is most common use?
So if you want to save money and you have someone with technical knowledge, you can go with EC2. If you don't have technical knowledge and you don't want to have a lot of headache, you can go with RDS because it's easy to use. In the production, depends. In the production, if you have money and you want to have extra features, you usually go with RDS, and mostly the Amazon Aurora RDS, because that is that gives you a lot of features, and we will be looking that in the slides. So we have seen RDS and EC2, so it is a managed SQL service which handles a lot of things, and here this is a customer managed where you have to install and configure everything yourself. AWS manages the database installation. You just need to select what database engine you want, and here you have to run the commands to install database, right? Then backups, high availability, OS patching, scaling resources like memory, CPU, storage can all be done by AWS. So you select auto scaling, you select automated backups, you select multi AZ deployment for high availability. So all is done by AWS, and here you have to set up yourself. So database professionals does the SQL installation, patching, defines and implements the backup, high availability solutions by creating replications, and scaling resources manually. So all of these are done manually when you use EC2, which requires a technical knowledge. So if you have the technical expertise and you have the team, you can go with EC2 because that will save you money. RDS is costly, but it gives you a lot of features as well.
Okay.
Then database professionals has limited access for performing tasks. Certain tasks require AWS provided store procedure. So the only drawback with this is like you cannot go into the server. Even though this is launched in a server behind the RDS, you cannot SSH into it and go and run commands. But here you can go inside the server, you have full access on the SQL instance, right?
Alright, okay. Yeah.
So let's go and complete our installation first. So we have seen all the configuration, and let's go and so you also have something known as log exports. So every database or every service is going to give you logs. Logs will tell you what is happening, what is the error, why the error has came, everything, right? So you can select, so there are different kind of logs: audit log, error log, general log, and slow query log. So if you want these logs to be stored somewhere like Amazon CloudWatch logs, you can enable that. When you enable this, all the logs that are created are stored in the Amazon CloudWatch logs. So whenever there is a problem, you can go and check that logs and then configure that problem. But you don't have the access to go into the server, so you need to find a way on how to do that depending on what the problem is. Then you can also enable maintenance. So maintenance is auto minor version upgrade. So specify yes to enable automatic upgrades to minor versions as they are released. So automatic upgrades once during the maintenance window for the database instance, which means if you want to upgrade something and you want to like maintenance window, if you, for example, let's take an example of an application. So let's say you have an application which you're using all the time, right? And the application has grown a lot, and now the user base is around millions or trillions of users every month. So they might be upgrading something to enable more functions and more performance, right? So if you see in some apps, when they are doing something, they provide a maintenance window, like you cannot use this application on Sunday at 5 o'clock because we are doing some upgrades for your user experience. Same way, if you want to do an upgrade or anything, you can set up a maintenance window and you can choose when do you want. So you can choose a window and you can select on Monday on this time for 30 minutes or for 1 hour, depending on what you want. So for now, I'm not going to enable maintenance. Then you can also enable auto prediction. If you enable this, it protects the data from being deleted accidentally. While this option is enabled, you cannot delete the database. So this is a good thing. If you don't want someone to accidentally delete your database, you can enable this because the database won't be deleted unless you have disabled this option. Right. Lastly, the RDS gives you how much would be the cost. So you can see the Amazon RDS free tier is available for you for free for 12 months. Each calendar month will allow you to use the Amazon RDS for free. So we are not paying any charge because we are using the free tier. But if you're using anything else other than free tier, you will get what would be the estimated cost for the RDS and the configuration you have selected.
Ah, okay. Oh, it show you there, alright.
Yeah, you can, or else you can go to this RDS pricing page, which will give you more idea about how. So for example, if I go with mysql pricing, and we have single AZ deployment, we have multi AZ deployment with 1 standby, and with 2 standby. I'll show you what standbys are and we will learn about that. So when you select single AZ deployment for this instance class, which is T4G micro, you have to pay 0.16 per hour in US East, so depending on the region as well. So you can see all the pricing here, and memory optimized instances are this. Then you can also have reserved instance where you can take the database for either 1 year or 3 years, and you can save some money. So you have different options present here. You can go and check, like depending on what storage you want. If you're using general purpose, the price would be this 0.115. If you're using provisioned IOPS with greater performance, the price would be 125. So this is all about RDS pricing. If you want, you can always come here and check. So you also have the charge for data transfer depending on how much data is transferred from the database and to the database. So for first 10 TB you pay around 0.09. For next 40 TB you pay 0.85. For next 100 TB you pay 0.07, and depending, right? And also if your RDS is transferring data to different services like CloudFront, you have to pay 0. But if it is transferred to this regions, which is government cloud US West, you have to pay this. So all the prices are mentioned on the RDS pricing page, and you can check that out. So now we should create this database. I'm going to click on create database. It takes around 5 to 6 minutes to make it available. So right now it is in creating state.
Okay.
So we have created a database which is my database, and it is a MySQL engine, and we have launched it in the US West 2A. The size is tb.t3.micro, and we have not enabled maintenance. The VPC is this, and we have not enabled Multi AZ as well. So you know what Multi AZ is, right?
Multi-availability zone.
Yeah, so
more than one zone, is it?
Yes, because we do this in production so that if this AZ, which is US West 2A, is down due to any reason, our database should also always be up in the other AZ, which is still available.
Okay, like the availability.
Yeah, so we are going to see what options we have using the slides. So we have seen there are 2 ways. Then let's go and do the overview. So RDS stands for Relational Database Service, and it is managed database service, which means everything is going to be managed by AWS, and it allows you to create databases like Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, Microsoft, and Aurora as well, which is AWS own database. So what are the advantages of using RDS? We have already discussed that, but let's go over them again. So RDS is a managed service which automatically do all these configurations like automated provisioning, OS patching, continuous backups, and restore them to any specific timestamp. Monitoring dashboards, read replicas. So I'm going to tell you what read replicas are. Read replicas for improved read performance, Multi AZ setup for disaster recovery, maintenance windows for upgrades, scaling capacity, so you can enable auto scaling as well. You can also set up scaling policy like vertical and horizontal. And storage is backed by EBS volumes, which can be either general purpose GP2 or provisioned IOPS IO1 or IO1. But the only drawback is you cannot SSH into your instance. So RDS backups, you have seen that there's an option to enable RDS backups. Backups means creating a copy so that whenever your primary database is down, you can create a new database with the backup. And backups are automatically enabled in RDS, and automated backups means daily full backup of your database during the maintenance window. Transaction logs are backed by RDS every 5 minutes, and you have the ability to restore to any point in time from the oldest backup to the 5 minutes ago. So when you have the backup, you can regain your database with any point of time. Like if you want to have the database that was on last Wednesday 5 o'clock, you can also do that. Then you have 7 days retention, which means your database would be like, if I go show you that option here in the database, in create database option. So we have seen that when we choose we choose the backup option. Here is the option for backup, which is
option for backup and snapshot.
Yeah, so when you create backup, it creates a snapshot. So you can see a copy text to snapshot, which means a snapshot is going to be created. And you have a retention option, which is here the option is 1 day. Number of days for which automatic backups are kept. So how long do you want the backup to be kept? That is what backup retention period is. So choose the number of days. Yeah, after 1 day it will delete, and then you will create, then 1 day it will delete, and then you will create. So you can extend this up to 35 days. So if you want the backups to be kept for the next 35 days, you can keep that.
Okay.
So backup retention period determines the period for which you can perform the point in time recovery, and Aurora offers 1 day backup retention for free. So this is for Aurora, and for other databases you need to pay some money. Then you have database snapshots. So when you, like for example, right now we already have a database created, and if I want to create the database backup manually, it will be created inside this snapshot. So you can also manually create a database snapshot, database backup like this. You can see now it is in available state. So if I click on this, I have an action to take a snapshot. Take a snapshot means create a database. So if I click on this, the feature is currently supported by InnoDB, or setting to take a snapshot of this database, you must provide a name. So we need to give the name of the database snapshot, let's say my backup, and I'm going to take snapshot. So once the snapshot is taken, everything is going to be replicated inside the snapshot, and we will have a backup which is my backup. So right now you can see it's in creating state because it is replicating, everything is there on the current database. So you can see it's a manual backup because we have created it manually, but you can also have automated backup. You can have backups that is shared from another account to you. You can have public backups and like this. So all of those. Alright, so let's go back to the screen. So we have created a manual backup which is there in the snapshot. So manually triggered by the user, retention of the backup for as long as you want. It does not get deleted unless you delete it yourself. Right, so when this is going to be available, I'm going to delete it myself because I don't want to get charged. Then you have auto scaling. So you have seen that whenever by default RDS gives you 20 GB of storage, which you can increase up to 64 TB. But you also have an option to enable auto scaling. Auto scaling means it helps you increase storage on the RDS instance dynamically, which means like whenever the amount of data in your RDS is increased, the storage should be increased at the backend as well. And when RDS detects you are running out of free storage, it scales automatically. Avoid manual scaling of your database storage, and you have to set maximum storage threshold, where we have set like if I go here in the RDS section again, click on create database, and if I go to the auto scaling option, which is here, yeah, so this is automatically enabled for Aurora. So I need to change it to like mysql standard create free tier, and if I go to auto scaling option now, I have the option to select the threshold. So this database should exceed up to 1 TB, but I can have it up to 64 TB as well. So you have to set the maximum threshold limit for your database storage, and you will automatically modify storage if the free storage is less than 10% of the allocated storage. So we have 20 GB. When the storage is left only 10% out of the 20 GB, the storage will automatically be increased. Or you have the low storage for last 5 minutes, it will be automatically increased. Or 6 hours have been passed since the last modification, then it will automatically increase as well. So these are the 3 criteria to increase the storage automatically, and it is used for applications where the storage is unpredictable. Right, you don't know how much the storage will grow. Then you can select auto scaling because you don't want the application to be stopped when the data is in a large amount. Then this is supported by all the RDS engines like MariaDB, MySQL, Postgres, SQL, and every Oracle as well.
Okay, those are the all RDS, MariaDB.
Yeah, so all of these are RDS. Yeah, all of them. And the Aurora, it all automatically have by default. So, but this is supported, so you can either choose them if you want. If not, you can disable it. But Aurora is automatically enabled. You cannot change that. Then you have something known as read replicas for read scalability. So, read replica. Whenever you see read replica, remember that we use it for increasing performance. And I'm going to explain you how we use it. So let's take an example of a social media application, right? Like an Instagram. So Instagram, let's take a famous influencer. Let's say, who is a famous influencer? Kylie Jenner. Okay, you know Kylie? You watch your videos?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Kylie uploads a video on Instagram, right? People go and people watch it. So this video that she has shared is going to be stored on a database inside the Instagram's servers or databases, right? So when she uploads this, when she posts it, which means she is writing to the database. The photo is uploaded to the database, which is coming from the application, which means it is writing to the database. It is stored in the database. Correct?
Yeah.
But now you went to her Instagram profile, I went to her Instagram profile, people all over the world went to her Instagram profile, and they are actually accessing that video, seeing that video, which means they are reading from the database, fetching the video from the database.
Yeah.
So whenever you put something to the database, it means writing to the database. Whenever you fetch something from the database, which means reading from the database.
Yeah.
So when there is a single database, master database, which is used for reading and writing, there will be a problem sometime that the database will decrease the performance, because reading and writing is done on the same database, and when the operations of reading and writings are more, the database can reduce its performance.
Yes.
So to maintain that and to solve this problem, we can use something known as Read Replica. So Read Replica is the master database is going to be replicated in another database like this, which is going to be used to fetch the data.
Okay.
So every time a user wants to see a Kylie Jenner's video, he is going to go to Instagram, and Instagram is going to then transfer the user to this database, not to the primary one. He's going to transfer it to this database so that the primary one should not be affected and the performance should not be degraded. So we use Read Replica whenever you want to increase the performance.
Okay.
And it is, you can have up to 5 read replicas. It can be either in the same AZ, same availability zone. It can be in different availability zone. It can be in different region as well.
Okay. Different region also.
Yeah, within AZ, cross AZ and cross region. Then you have the replication. Replication means whenever you create a read replica, the data that is stored here is going to be replicated. So whenever she uploads a video, and if you are accessing it here, the Instagram is going to transport it here. The data should be present here, right? So that can be present only when the replication is done. So this replication is done asynchronously. By asynchronously, this asynchronously means the data can sometimes be older, and there can be a problem where you can get the old data, but that is how it is. So asynchronous replication.
Okay.
But that is not all the case. Like, it takes some time to get the replication. So replication in read replica is asynchronous. So reads are eventually consistent, and replicas can also be promoted to their own database. So let's say Instagram is using this master database, right? And it has replicated all the data here. Now he wants to set up another master database in another region or anywhere else, maybe in another application. So he created another application like Instagram Pro or anything else. So if he wants this database that is storing all the data replicated from here, we can also create another database from this read replica.
Okay.
Then if I show you that how to create, sorry?
Okay. You create from master or from read replica?
Yeah, so if I create a read replica from the existing database, so right now we have a database which is my database here. If I click on actions here, I have an option to create Aurora read replica, right?
Okay, yeah, I can see, yeah.
We also have an option read replica which is committed out. I don't know why. Because we have not selected multi AZ, or we have not enabled. So when you use the production use case, like we are using the free tier, so that is the problem. But when you use any other, you can always do that. You can also modify your database settings even after it is created. You can modify settings like we're going to see here what settings you can modify. So you can modify the engine version, you can modify the name, you can change the password if you want. If you have forgotten it, you can directly change it from here. Then you can select change what scaling storage you want. You can select if you want to have a multi AZ deployment, so you can create a standby and the master in somewhere else. So this is all settings you can change, right? So read replica, I hope you understood why we use it. We use it so that the master database should not decrease the performance, and reads should be done from the read replica.
Yeah.
whenever you want the application to transport the user on the read replica, whenever the user want to fetch it, you have to use a connection string to leverage that read replica, which the connection string would be something like this. If you see the database here, I have an endpoint, which is my database, some random string, and the region name .amazonaws.com. So this is a string that is going to be used whenever I want to create, whenever I want to connect to my database, or whenever I want an application to use this database. Similarly, when we create a read replica, we will have something endpoint like this, which we have to enter in our database, so that which we have to enter in our application, so that the application should start using read replica for all the read operations. Okay. If any doubt, any questions, you can always ask me, but I think this is pretty clear with the Kylie Jenner example.
Yeah, that's clear. Yeah.
So let's take an example, use case as well. So let's say you have a production database, which is this, that is taking a normal load. So you are reading to it, you are writing to it, and everything is performing very good, right? So your application is working fine. Now the database is storing some data and you want to run some operations on it. Let's say this is an e-commerce application which is selling clothes and shoes to people all over the world, right? So when people come here, they see all the shoes and all the clothes that is stored in this database, and they're also entering their name, their address, their card details, and everything else, right? Yeah. So everything is going to be stored here. Now you want to run some operations because you want to increase your sales. You want to know how many users are from India, how many users are from Pakistan or any other country. So you can run some operations on this data, and then you can get the idea of how your user is behaving and what you can show them, so that you can increase your sales. So you want to run a reporting application to run some analytics, and if you run the reporting application on the master database, there can be a problem, because the performance can be reduced, because you're already using this for production application and you don't want to do that. So you can create a read replica and then run the reporting application on this one, so that this production database should not be affected.
Okay.
So you remember, we use it only for the read for the read of the data, only for the read, not for the write.
For the write, and one for reading and master for writing, and read for reading, is it?
So this arrow is writing, which means you are inserting the data inside the database. User came in, he wants to get the shoes, so he's reading the shoes, like reading the data of the shoes from the database. Now he wants to buy it, so he goes to the order page, he wants to enter his name, address, card ID, everything else. So now he's entering the data, which means he's writing to the database.
Master.
Yeah, so this is the master database, which is reading and writing. If you want to run any application, you won't be running it on this master database. You can create a read replica, which will be a replication of the master database, and then you can run it. So read replicas are used only for the select kind of statement. You cannot insert, update, or delete. So there are different query statements in the databases. You have select, you have insert, update, create, alter, and all of the other databases, depending on what it is. So whenever you use read replica, you get only select, which is used for reading the data, not for writing. Writings are insert, update, delete. You cannot write to the database. You cannot make any changes to the database. You can only read through it. So it is read only database.
Okay.
So there is always a cost whenever the data is transferred, but in read replica, if the read replica is in the same region but different AZ, or same region, same AZ, you don't have to pay any money.
Okay.
So same region, same AZ, same region, different AZ, no charge for network, no charge for the data. But if your database, a master replica, a master instance, and the read replica is in different region, you have to pay the price. So in AWS, there's a network cost when data goes from one AZ to another, but for read replicas, you don't pay for different AZ, but for different region you have to pay. So for read replicas within the same region, you don't pay the fee, but if it is in different region, you pay the fee.
Okay.
Then you have multi AZ multi AZ. So we have seen what read replica is and why we use it. We use it because we want to increase the performance of our database. We don't want our master database to be affected due to any reason.
Yeah.
So we use read replica for performance. Then we have something known as multi AZ, which is used for disaster recovery. So just a second, let's see what the time is. Is it?
You're going. Don't worry,
No, we have time. Okay. So multi AZ deployment. Multi AZ is used whenever you want to have disaster recovery. So let me give an example for this. Let's say you have an application like Instagram again. Right, so Instagram has a database which is very important for it because it does not want the database to be deleted or made any changes. If it is deleted, user will not able to log in, user will face any problems, might be their photos are deleted or their videos are deleted, which is not a good experience. Instagram will lose a lot of money if it does that, right? So this database loss can be done by any reasons. It can be because of the database which is stored in the data center has caught fire, or someone has some database administrator made any changes or anything, right? Database can be gone. So for that you can set up something known as multi AZ, which means the data is replicated in a standby instance which is kept in another AZ, so that if this master database is gone through any reason, the application will start using the standby automatically. You don't have to do any configuration.
Okay.
And here whenever you
identical.
Sorry?
Two identical databases.
Yes, very identical. So whenever you read, like when you create a standby or multi-AZ deployment, anything that you read and write is going to be automatically stored here, and this is going to be a synchronous replication, not asynchronous replication like read replica. It's going to be a synchronous replication, which means the data is going to be stored and it is going to be accurate.
Okay.
So everything is going to be stored. As soon as someone writes here, the replication is done as well.
Okay.
So if there is a problem with this database, application is going to use this one automatically. The DNS is automatic failover is done. So whenever you create multi-AZ, it is a synchronous replication. Everything is going to be replicated, and you have one DNS name. So the DNS name, which is the endpoint that we have seen, this is the endpoint, is going to be the same for both of them. So if this is gone, application is going to start using this, and you can enable multi-AZ by going here, clicking on actions. If you have you also have the option when you click on the create database option. When you select anything apart from the free tier or free tier, you can see if I use mysql, I go to production, I have multi-AZ deployment, right? So multi-AZ, whenever you want to have disaster recovery, whenever you want to have high availability, we use multi-AZ. Whenever we want to have performance, we go with read replica. So it increases availability, you get high availability. Failover is done in case of the loss of the AZ or loss of network or instance or storage failure. Any problem, the failover is going to be done automatically. And there is no manual intervention in the apps. You don't have to do anything in the application as well. And it is not used for scaling. It is just used for disaster recovery. It does not increase any performance, anything, but only for disaster recovery.
Okay.
And multi-AZ replication is free. Read replicas be set up as multi-AZ for disaster recovery only. So read replicas can be set up for multi-AZ. So you can you know why read replica is used, right? To increase the performance. But you can also have multi-AZ for read replica, which means a read replica is also have a standby instance of itself, which will be a very strong architecture, but it will cost you a lot of money.
Okay.
So how can you go from single AZ to multi-AZ? So right now, let's say you have a master database, right? And it does not take any time. It is a zero time operation, which means you don't have to stop your database. So how can you go with the multi AZ? You can create a snapshot by manually creating a snapshot and then restore a snapshot in different AZ or different region. So you know how to create a snapshot, right? We have seen that.
Yeah.
So we go here, we have a snapshot, we can click on actions here, and then we can migrate the snapshot or copy that snapshot to another region and then create a database from this.
Okay. Similar to EC2 instance, is it? That is the snapshot. We create the snapshot.
Yeah, we don't have snapshots in the EC2 instance. We have EBS snapshot for EBS volumes. So if I go here in the EC2 part,
Snapshot, yeah.
So we have snapshots here in the EBS block store, which is creating the backup of the volumes, EBS volumes. So let's see what Multi AZ is. Multi AZ is used whenever you want to have disaster recovery. You can create Multi AZ deployment by creating a snapshot and then restoring the snapshot in different AZ. Following things will happen: a snapshot will taken, a new database is restored from a snapshot in a new AZ, and synchronization is going to be established between the two databases, which means whenever someone writes to this database, it will automatically be replicated to this one, standby.
Okay.
Then we have encryption, which means encrypting your data, securing your data. Encryption is done in two ways. It is done at rest and in flight. At rest means whatever data that is kept inside the database is going to be encrypted using the AWS KMS key.
Okay.
So possibility to encrypt the master and the read replica with the AWS KMS using this encryption, which is AES 256 encryption. Encryption has to be defined at the launch time. So you can define that when you are creating the instance, RDS instance. You can choose if you want it to be encrypted or not. You can go here while creating the data. We have already seen that. So we can enable encryption. If I click MySQL, I go to encryption. We have an option to enable encryption here, which is going to be done by AWS KMS key.
Yeah.
Encryption then if the master is not encrypted, the read replicas will not be encrypted as well. Same as we have in EBS. If the master is not encrypted, the read replica that is created from this master will not be encrypted. But if it is encrypted, then the read replica will be encrypted as well. Then you have for Oracle and SQL Server, you have something known as transparent data encryption, which you don't have for MySQL. So this is what encryption is at rest. But you also have in-flight encryption, which means data when transferred between the application and the database is going to be encrypted using SSL certificates.
So okay, execution.
Yes. So this is SSL HTTPS, like what we use for the
For encryption.
for the websites. Yeah, we use the certificates. Same way we can also use certificates for encryption in the database.
Yeah, exactly.
So to enforce SSL in Postgres, you need to pass this in the parameter group, and if you want to do it with MySQL, you need to run this query within the database. So we have already seen that, and now I've already shown you how to create this database as well. So we have seen how to create a database. We already have a database running, so I'm going to first cancel this. Okay. So I've already shown you how to create a database, and let's try to connect to this database.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy this. So if you have a MySQL workbench, you can download that MySQL workbench, which is a client for MySQL, right? So I don't have that. I have Postgres by PgAdmin. So I'm going to let's go and first create a new Postgres database, which is kind of similar to how we did the MySQL as well. So I'm going to delete this.
Okay. Yeah.
But before I do that, I need to also delete the snapshot as well, because if I forget that, I'm going to get charged. So I'm going to go here and delete snapshot. Then I'm going to go to the dashboard database. I'm going to delete the database as well. So delete and delete. So now we can, after some time, it should be in deleting state. So let's wait. So now I'm going to go in the create database
But
option.
how you connect or you delete it?
Sorry.
Or you already delete, how you are going to connect?
So I'm going to create a Postgres, which I'm going to create because I don't have the mysql workbench. So you can launch.
Okay, all right, okay.
You can launch.
Got you now.
You can launch yours, and if you face any problem, you can let me know. But I'm going to show you how to we do that for Postgres. So we're going to use free tier. As we use free tier, we don't have the multi AZ deployment option, but you should always go for multi AZ when you're using the production workload. Then I have the setting to provide the name of my database, which is going to be mydb again. Mydb Postgres. The username is Postgres. Password can be anything, so I'm going to pass word 123. Password 123. Okay, DB83 micro. Storage is going to be general purpose. Auto allocated storage is 20 GB. I don't want to enable auto scaling, but you can enable auto scaling if your workload is unpredictable. Then if you want to connect to an Amazon EC2 compute resource, you can do that. Don't set up a connection to compute resource for this database. You can manually set up a connection to a compute resource later on. So now I'm going to choose this VPC subnet group default publicly accessible because I want to connect it outside the VPC through my local machine. Then I can choose security group. Security group should have a port number 5432. You can choose what AZ do you want to launch in. I want to launch it in US West 2A. Then you can choose a database authentication. How should a user to be connected to this database using password? So I'm going to choose password authentication. Then you can enable encryption if you want, and you can also enable performance inside, but I'm not going to enable that. Additional configuration, you can enable monitoring. Additional configuration you have, so I'm going to name this my DB again. So it's a default Postgres DB. If I don't want to enable backups, I don't want to have encryption, but you have an option to enable backups, any which will be stored till 7 days. You have the option to enable it so that the data inside this database should be secured. Then you can also store logs in the CloudWatch logs. You can enable maintenance, and that is all. So I'm going to click on create database option. And
now,
this should.
If you want to create through terraform, it's going to be a lot of code, I think.
No, it won't be a lot of code. I will also show you that in the next session on how to create database using Terraform. That will be a very easy. Once we know how all the configurations present in here, that will be very easy. So in next session, I'll show you how to create a RDS database using Terraform. So this one is not deleted yet. To be able to delete, modify the database and disable. Okay, so you remember we enabled deletion protection.
Yeah.
That is why it is not deleted. So you can go here and modify section.
This option is available in EC2 instance also.
Yes, it is for EC2 instance as well. If you enable that, you can't delete it unless you disable that option. So you can find that option here in the last, which is here. So enable it, disable it, and then I can delete my database easily. So if I go to my database now and choose an actions, close delete, so it's still modifying. It will take some time. Apply immediately. I'm going to modify this database instance. So now I can delete it. So I don't want to create final snapshot. I acknowledge that upon deleting everything will be deleted, and I'm going to type delete me. Then this is going to be deleted. So if I refresh, it is deleting.
Yeah.
And this one is creating. So let me show you now. Like, this is going to take some time. I already have an instance which has Postgres on it. So let's see. I also have a Python code which is going to create and connect to the database. I'll also show you that later on how to connect to a Postgres database using Python. So you can see this is a Postgres database. So if I show you if I have Postgres on it or not. So let's see. So if I run psql-ov, it's going to show me that I have a Postgres version 14 installed on this machine, right? So if you're in the current machine, you can run this command sudo -u Postgres, which is the username, and if I type enter, I am in the Postgres user, right? When I am in the Postgres user, I can run this command psql, and now I am inside the Postgres. So here I can run commands to see what database I'm connected to. I'm connected to database Postgres, and if I run the /du, I can see what tables are present here. If I want to see what are the users present here, these are all the users. If I want to see the tables, I can run this, which is /l, and it is going to show me what are the different databases present. And if I want to connect to it through any other, for example, if I want to connect it through my local machine, right? This is my local machine. I can connect to it using the string. So the string is going to be, let me show you that. So Postgres string for remote connection.
What the strings are valuable?
Sorry?
The string. Where in Postgres?
Yeah, so every database is going to have a string, which will, in the string you will have to enter the username and the password, and sometimes also port as well, so that you can connect to that database.
Alright.
For example, if I show you this code here that I have created a few days back. So do you have any knowledge of Python?
Yeah, Python.
Okay, let me show you that.
It's easy language to understand.
Huh?
I haven't finished. I start now.
Oh, I can also teach you Python if you want, but depends. So let me show you this code. Okay, so you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
So this is Python module to connect to Postgres. You can use scopg.connect, and then you have to pass in the parameters like database, host name. Then for now I used localhost, but I can use host, which is going to be the public IP of my instance. If it is on RDS, I can use my endpoint, which is this. This is how you connect. You just have to change the host name, and then the user is Postgres. The password is password1234. So let's try to connect it with PgAdmin. So PgAdmin 4, which is this. For me to connect to the database, this is required to unlock saved password. So I'm going to pass in my password. I'm not sure if this is the right one. Okay, this is the right one. So I want to connect to a server. So connect to a server. How do I do that? Add new server option. In here I need to pass in the name, connection, SSL, SS external. So in host I need to pass in the string, the endpoint string. The port is 5432. This is the username. Password is password123, and I'm going to save this password. I don't have any rule. Let's see if this works or not. So my DB, and let's try to save it and see what happens. So it says unable to connect to the server, password authentication. I guess I'm using the wrong password. So let's try with that again. So password 123, and now Now it is connected.
Oh yeah, it's connected. So
Right? You can see this is the database. Right now I don't have any databases, but I can create more and I can start using it. So this is how you connect to Postgres database. You can see the user which we have currently, and I can create more databases and more tables in it. Same way if you do for MySQL, you can use MySQL Workbench if you want to have like this, or else you can also connect to your database using terminal. So I'm going to show you using terminal tomorrow. So I hope everything is cleared up to what we have learned today. So in the next session we are going to see how to connect to your database using terminal, how to do it through Terraform, how to create RDS through Terraform, and then we will also see how to create a program to connect it through Python.
Alright.
Okay.
Tomorrow I'll text you.